It had been a long time since I had been back here, though the roads, now well paved, jet black and smooth, vastly contrast their once marl white and gravel gray, potholed and dilapidated condition. They are still winding, pulling me ever more upward and through the thick green of overhanging trees and bamboo leaves. The air still fresh, the wind still cool, and the midday sun still her stark yellow hot and strong. I had left the car at Mama's house and taken off for a walk since she wasn't home. Brushing against the tall grass by the side of the road, my thoughts spiraled. Why had I been away this long? And to return like this, trying to escape, too ashamed to lift my head to the God I'd turned against, a baby in my belly, a man in my heart, and the pain of how I left him, or was it how he had left me?
Child, you early. I thought you was to come later.
I met her on the road. Her thick, kinky hair, white like the moon, pulled up in a neat bun, contrasted beautifully against her rich, dark brown skin. Though well over 70 years old and the mother of 8 children, her hourglass figure had not waned. Her skin was smooth and scarcely wrinkled. A buxom, she still silhouetted everything she wore with bold feminine lines. Healthy as I always remembered, she kept her back straight and the involuntary swish of her hips that followed every graceful step was strong and full of vigor. We embraced and walked back to the house. Yes, Mama, there wasn't much traffic on the road after I left the airport. I slowly replied, careful not to look into her searching gaze. I smiled, being truly happy to be home and with her, but there was a tinge of sadness I was powerless to conceal. And Mama, with her skills of perception sharpened from years of raising children and grandchildren, had not missed it.
What wrong with you, girl? Why you look so down? And why it look like you entire life inside the car and you not just here for a visit?
I couldn't answer. My tears seemed chained to my lips, and should I speak, the dams would break.
Oh my, what's wrong with this grandchild?
She sighed.
Since you're not answering, come inside.
The house was soon filled with the smell of steamed callaloo, beans and tofu stew, and fresh cooked brown rice. We sat down for dinner as the late afternoon sun streamed through the window, resting on Mama's cyan, blue, and gray tiled floors. We said grace, as we usually do. Mama rarely did anything without prayer to God. I was like that too, or at least I used to be. As the beans and callaloo blended in my mouth, I remembered a younger, more pious me. How could I have let myself get pregnant for a man who isn't my husband? How could I trample on the truths of God I so freely chose to believe? But he did love me. We were not a likely couple. He preferred more of the pretty, outgoing, freewheeling kind of woman, not the austere woman clinging to archaic rules and belief systems, as he would put it, that I was. We differed in so many ways that on realizing he liked me, I thought he must have simply been intrigued by my apparent uniqueness or whatever. And realizing my attraction to him, my first instinct was to shut it away and tell it to be quiet. Suffocate it, it will die. Yet why did his interest seem so sincere? He did not just chase me for the kill and disappear after our first time. My first time. He continued to pursue me time and again for over 3 years. At that time, it really seemed like love. His affections for me were really strong, but now I'm not so sure that that's what real love is. He had overstayed his visa in the U.S. I was merely a permanent resident there, so he didn't feel assured in marrying me. Marrying a citizen would give him greater security, so he married someone else to straighten out his immigration status. I knew it was coming. He was very straight with me about his situation, but he didn't tell me about her or the wedding until after he had married her. I was furious, dejected, pregnant but still hesitant to give up. What was insane is that he didn't want me to leave him even after marrying her. It was like he thought that I would just be his side woman until he'd get his paperwork in order, and then he'd divorce her. He tried to convince me that it was some kind of mutually beneficial agreement between him and her and nothing more. I wanted to see it that way too, but I knew better, and my better judgment snapped at me with a fierceness like, "What kind of nonsense? Is that what marriage is to you?" I told him over the phone that we were done, but defiant and determined, he begged me to meet him. I was still struggling to understand that the man I had been with and loved for 3 years was now another woman's husband, so I went. We tiptoed around each other for a bit, but eventually small talk became more of a nuisance than an icebreaker, and my real feelings began to pour out. Was I mere entertainment for him, just occupying his time until he found something better? He tried to convince me otherwise. If you were serious about me, why didn't you marry me instead? I'll be eligible for citizenship in 2 years. If you were serious, couldn't you have waited 2 years? I screamed. He didn't say much more than he usually would, only that I knew what his situation was. Dissatisfied with his response, I asked again if he had married someone else only because of his immigration issue, or was it that I wasn't worth considering because, to him, I was simply a passing intrigue. He denied it strongly. I still wasn't convinced. Angry, desperate, worn out, and beating against my chest to force the words out and silence my pride, I asked, "So, you're saying you would have married me, Justin? Would you choose me?" My voice tremored behind the tears. Yet after all that effort and emotion, I was immediately struck with the deflating impression that asking him that had been in vain, the height of futility, and nothing would change. And at that thought, my arms grew limp and my gaze sank to the floor.
Obviously, Mireille, if things were different,
was his burdened answer as he seemed to become weak and his large frame slouched over under the pressure of everything. I later learned that there had been ongoing immigration raids in the area, so he had acted rashly out of anxiety. He slowly raised his head, and regretful, quivering, watery eyes pierced my soul. I hugged him. I shouldn't have, but I did. It felt as though he scarcely had enough strength to stand. This was the man I loved shrinking beneath the weight of his difficult situation, and me walking away in the middle of it. I didn't want to let him go, but I had been putting him first all this time, when I should have been putting God first. Here he had married another woman. He had put another woman ahead of me, but was asking me to stay with him or wait for him. How was I supposed to let myself wait around for someone's marriage to break? And what if I wait? They could even fall in love during their time together, and they'd be well within their rights too. They're married, and I would be chopped liver. He didn't understand the seriousness of marriage. He was asking me to choose between him and God again. I had chosen him so many times before. I was wrong all those times. I abruptly told him I was pregnant, and I was keeping the baby. He didn't argue. Personally, I think he was too shocked to argue. Nevertheless, I then let him go, and I left. Tasting Mama's food and remembering how I had hurt God, how I lost the man I love and his child I was now carrying was too overwhelming. The dams broke, and there was no controlling the waters that would rage until they settled on their own. Mama lovingly embraced and kissed me repeatedly until I, in my inconsolable wailing, finally realized her care and rested in it. I refused to keep it secret anymore and painstakingly told her everything, prepared to hear how I had forsaken and disrespected a loving God for a man who did not even choose me, how I had shamed myself, and how would I now face the church and all our neighbors who knew of our beliefs, and how much of a joke I would look like in front of them, walking around with a belly full of the evidence of my sins. I was prepared in vain. She uttered no rebuke. She told me everyone makes mistakes, and that God was ready to forgive me and lift me up again. I just needed to go to Him. She told me that the blessing in my womb was to be loved without measure. Moreover, she promised to bear everything with me. I cried all the more. We talked for a long time, and she asked about the baby's father and then called to introduce herself to him. As the months go by and the due date nears, it gets a little easier. At first, not a day would go by that I wouldn't imagine Justin walking up the long graveled drive in the shade of the apple and guinep trees to tell me that he was never married to her, and it was all a mistake and misunderstanding, that he was sorry and will properly propose to me, or at the least a phone call saying that. Still, I suppose a grown woman shouldn't expect such things. After all, life doesn't work that way. He's a married man. I know I'm not over him yet. I mean, how do I still get nervous when he calls me? I'm even dumbfounded at myself. But that's how it goes, and Jesus keeps working with me as long as I keep inviting him to step in. Now, I rarely expect anything more than his periodic check-ins saying,
How are you and the baby?
and my unaffected as possible reply, we're fine, you don't need to worry. More and more, I'm understanding that there needs to be a very professional distance between him and I. Professionally, we are simply parents of the same child. He has a wife, and they may soon have children of their own. Even though, in the beginning, my mind kept screaming that I was first, it's not right that I've been shoved off to the side like this. I was with him first. How is it that my child and I are now the problem? But this is because of the choice he made. I was wrong too because I knew better than to be intimate with a man I wasn't married to. I've settled into the understanding that it doesn't matter that we were together long before he met her because he put her ahead of me by making her his wife. It doesn't matter that his affection for me always seemed genuine, that I had no reason to doubt that he cared for me. What matters is the choice he made. That choice deleted my relevance in his life, and that's just how it is. So, there needs to be distance, so it's clear that there is nothing going on between us. I don't want to be a threat to their home. My greatest regret now is that this child will quite likely have to grow up separated from her father for the most part, and may bear a lot of shame and anger because of the choices of her parents. She may even be ostracized by his legitimate family, but she belongs to God by creation and ransom. So whether her father is there or not, it's sure that God will be her father and lavish his love on her, as long as we allow him to.
Longest night, the love lost its fire and we're apart, leaving